Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you a step-by-step tutorial on how I made these horns. And I'm going to show you the materials I used and everything in between. I think they turned out really awesome. I am still super new to the process of making horns though, so if you guys have any comments or suggestions to help make my horns even better in the future, I am open to it. But for now I'm going to show you how I made these, and yeah, hopefully you like it. Thanks. So these are the materials that I used for the first part of the project. As you can see here, I have 2 soft styrofoam blocks. You can use the other styrofoam, but I found the material to be too scratchy and not as easy to shape and mold as the soft foam. I also grabbed a head so I could size the horns accordingly and make sure I'm not making them too big or too small. I made sure to grab a wider, thicker headband to make it a solid base for the horns. I grabbed some simple carving materials that were sold right next to the styrofoam, along with this small needlepoint hot iron to help cut out some of the bigger chunks. I got a piece of sandpaper and a nail file to help smooth out any rough edges, and then of course some paper and a pencil to draw out the plans. Most of these items were fairly cheap. I was able to get all of these supplies for about $50 at my local craft store. And I did grab extra blocks just in case I made any mistakes or if I needed to start over. Once I gathered my materials and drew up my plans on a sheet of paper, I used the extended headband to draw out how I want the horns laid, and then I drew a rough outline of the horns on the styrofoam blocks. This is what I wanted my design to look like, and I also labeled the left and right sides so I knew which side was which when making my horns. So the next step is I grabbed my needlepoint carver and I turned it on and I used it to cut out the basic shapes in my styrofoam block to shape out the horns. You do have to work quickly as the tool gets extremely hot and it melts the styrofoam very fast, so you need to work carefully and quickly as you carve it out. I also went through and I carved out the edges to help make it more rounded later. Afterwards, I went through and used my different carving tools and mostly my sandpaper and nail file to kind of help round out the horns. I would go in every once in a while using the needle point to kind of take off any other bigger chunks or refine any details, and then I would go in and use the sandpaper and the nail file to get those rough edges smoothed out. You do have to be patient while you are in the process of carving and shaping your horns. This took me probably 4 to 5 hours just to make sure I was getting the basic shapes right on both of the horns and making them as even as possible. So you do have to be patient while you're working with them. But these are what my horns looked like when I was finished with the carving process. So the next step is I would wrap my horns in plaster gauze, which again, if you do not currently have plaster gauze, you can just get it at any local craft store. I used my gauze to cut it into strips with my scissors, and then I dipped them in hot water and wrapped them around each of my horns. I completely covered the horns with one layer of the gauze. It keeps the styrofoam light, but it also solidifies the styrofoam. That way it is less likely to break and you are able to use the horns more often over a period of time. Place them in a safe spot to dry overnight. The next day, once your horns are completely dry, I go through again with the nail file and the sandpaper and I just smooth out any rough edges. You need to be careful so you don't peel any of the gauze off. And then my favorite part, time to paint. You can paint your horns however you like. I based my horns off with a black base coat, and then I added in some flames at the bottom of the horns, as this is part of a commission project. So I'm making these horns for a very dear friend of mine, and this is going to be part of her Halloween costume. So these were a lot of fun to make, and I appreciated her trusting me to make these for her, even though I'm extremely new at the process and will probably just, over time develop a better understanding on how to make my horns even better in the future. Last steps is I would align my horns up to the headband, glue them on, and create a layer, and then I not videoed, but I used some spare fabric to wrap around the headband and the base of the horns to make it all even and make sure that there were no other pieces sticking out on the sides, so it was just one cohesive piece. That's how you make the horns. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the tutorial. Again, if you have any suggestions on how to make my horns even better in the future, just comment below. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thanks!